Hi everybody, Mr. Wyatt here, and we are looking at the review problems for the chapter here, chapter 10 on integers. And so I'm glad you're here to check out how to do some of these problems here. In this first video, we'll see how far we get. But starting out with number 1, we have negative 56 plus negative 56. Now what I notice is both of these integers are negative values. And remember, if you have negative values joining with negative values, they're just going to add together to have a larger number of negative numbers. Okay, anytime you have a negative added to a positive, then you're going to get some zero pairs where some of the negatives are going to cancel out with some of the positives. But when the signs are the same, you look for the sum. You add them up. So I actually can add together the absolute value of each of these numbers. Remember, the absolute value is its distance away from 0. Basically, I can just ignore the negative signs. And 56 plus 26, let's see what we get. 6 plus 6 is 12. Carry the 1. 1, 5, and 2 is 8. So we get 82. And what's really important is to always look back to verify what should our sign be? Should it be positive or should it be negative? And since we were adding two negative values together, we have a larger group of negative numbers. We have 82 negatives to be exact. So negative 82 is our answer to that problem. Now, number 2, the rules are different for multiplying and dividing. Remember, when multiplying or dividing, anytime you have two negative signs in the problem, they will undo each other. One is finding the opposite of the other, in effect. So whenever you have two negative signs, they'll join together to make a positive. But in this problem, it's negative 6 times 12. We only have one negative sign, so we're going to get a negative result when we're all done. So all we need to do is multiply together the absolute values of these numbers, 12 times 6. Just ignore the signs right now and multiply these together. 6 times 2 is 12, carry the 1. 6 times 1 is 6, add 1, that's 7. And since we have one negative sign in our original problem, we will get a negative result here. Negative times positive will give you a negative result. So if the signs are the same, you look for the sum when you're adding. Here we're multiplying and we only have one negative sign, so we get a negative answer. All right, number 3. We have negative 49 minus negative 31. Now it's a subtraction problem, but remember, anytime that you're subtracting, you can change it into an addition problem by adding the opposite of the second number. So I'm going to rewrite this. Instead of negative 49 minus negative 31, I'm going to change this to plus, but then I also have to change this to positive 31. So I have negative 49 plus positive 31. Now, if the signs are the same, you look for the sum like you did in number 1. But if the signs are different, then you look for the difference. What will happen is these 31 positives are going to make a zero pair with 31 of the negatives, but we're still going to have some negatives left over. We have more negatives than positives. We'll have a negative result when we're done. The question is, how many more negatives are there than there are positives? So I'm going to go ahead and take 49 minus 31 and see what I get. And I get a difference here of 18. 9 minus 1 is 8. 4 minus 3 is 1. And we have more negatives than positives. So my final answer is negative 18. Okay? Over here I have negative 54 divided by 9. This is actually a lot like number 2. Number 2 I know was multiplying, and this one is dividing, but our rules for multiplying and dividing integers are the same. Anytime you have two negative signs, they will join together to make a positive result. They'll cancel each other out, in effect. This problem only has one negative sign, so I know my answer will be negative. At this point, all I have to do is just divide 54 by 9. And this is one that we should have memorized. It is 6. As you can see here, 6 times 9 does equal 54. And since I have one negative sign in the original problem, my answer will be negative as well. So it's negative 6. Number 5, we have negative 96 divided by negative 96. Now, actually, if you're dividing a number by itself, won't it always end up equaling 1? Isn't anything divided by itself going to equal 1? That's what we've always been taught, right? Anything divided by itself equals 1. That is true here also. If you divide 96 by 96, if you just ignore the signs, that does equal 1 because 1 times 96 equals 96. And we have two negative signs, and when you're multiplying or dividing, anytime you have two negatives, they'll cancel each other out and give you a positive result. So it does equal positive 1. Number 6, I have 16 plus negative 35. Now, we always want these problems to be addition problems. If it were a subtraction problem, we would change. We would add the opposite and rewrite it as an addition problem. So here I have 16 plus negative 35. This value is positive, this one is negative. And when you have one that's positive, the other that's negative, you actually have to find the difference between them. Okay, but when you're subtracting them, you're not looking at the negative signs anymore. You're looking at their absolute values. I have 35 here minus 16 here. We cannot subtract 6 from 5 without going in the negatives, so that's a problem. We're going to make 3 into 2. This becomes 15. 15 minus 6 is 9. 2 minus 1 is 1. So we get a difference here of 19. What we've really just found here is that we have 19 more negatives than we have positives. So we will get a negative answer since there are more negatives than positives. Negative 19 is our answer. Think of it like this. These 16 positives are going to go in here and drag away 16 of these negatives. They will make a zero pair with 16 of those negatives. Okay, once they do that, these positives are gone. So are 16 of those negatives. How many negatives will remain? That's why we subtracted, and we found there would be 19 negatives that remain. We have 19 more negatives than we have positives. Number 7, it's a division problem, negative 51 divided by negative 3. Remember, with multiplication and division, anytime you have a pair of negative signs, they'll cancel each other out. So we're going to get a positive answer here. These negatives will cancel out. All I really need to do here is just divide 51 by 3. 3 goes into 5 one time. We get a remainder of 2. Let's bring down the 1 next. And 3 goes into 21 7 times. 7 times 3 is 21. So we get our remainder here of 0. And so our answer here is 17. I always like to look back at the problem to make sure I'm getting my sign correct. And it is positive because negative divided by negative would give us a positive result. The two negatives are going to cancel each other out. Number 8, it's a multiplication problem, so we're following the same rules that we followed for division. 8 times negative 15. Well, I only have one negative sign here, so my answer will be negative. Okay? And then all I have to do then is just multiply the absolute values together. 15 times 8. Basically, you're just ignoring the negative signs as you multiply. 8 times 5 is 40. There's my 0. Bring the 4 over here. 8 times 1 is 8, plus 4 is 12. So I have 120, and remember, my answer will be negative since there is only one negative sign here. Negative 120. All right, number 9, we have negative 44 plus 56. Now it's an addition problem, so again, our rules change a little bit here, and the signs are different, so I need to find the difference. These 44 negatives are going to walk over here and drag 44 of the positives away, and they'll make a zero pair. Take 44 negatives, balance them with 44 positives, it equals 0. So if you do that, how many positives will be left over? We have more positives than we have negatives, so our answer will be positive. Okay? How many more positives are there than negatives? So we subtract 56 minus 44. 6 minus 4 is 2. 5 minus 4 is 1. So we have a difference here of 12, and we have more positives than negatives. Remember, our answer will be positive. So positive 12 is our answer. Now look at number 10. Remember what I said about subtraction problems? We don't want to leave them as subtraction problems. We want to change. We want to change it to adding and then change the sign of the next number after that. So instead of minus, we're going to write plus. And then in exchange, we need to change this to its opposite, which would be positive 26. So if I rewrote this, I can rewrite it as negative 26 plus positive 26. And these are opposites. When you add opposites together, you will get a zero pair. These equal 0 when you add them together. So negative 26 plus 26 is 0. And I want you to think about this. If you look back at the original problem, anything minus itself will equal 0. We had negative 26. We took away negative 26. Anything minus itself does equal 0. So it makes sense that our answer is 0. All right, number 11, we have negative 15 times 6. Now we have our rules for multiplying and dividing, which tell us if you have one negative sign, you'll get a negative answer. Anytime you have two negative signs, they cancel each other out and you'll have a positive answer. So here we only have one negative sign, so we're going to get a negative answer. And then to find out what that answer is, just multiply these together, ignoring this sign now. So 15 times 6. 6 times 5 is 30, carry the 3. 6 times 1 is 6, add 3, that's 9. So we have 90, but remember, it's negative. We have to be so careful with our signs. Negative 90. Number 12, back to an addition problem. But guess what? I can't add because the signs are not the same. I have negative 38 plus 53. This one's negative. This one's positive. Negatives and positives don't mix. You can't just join them together. You end up subtracting. So we need to decide, will the answer be positive or will it be negative? And guess what? It's going to be positive because we have more positives than we have negatives. These 38 negatives are going to cancel out 38 positives. They will make a zero pair with 38 positives. But then we're still going to have a bunch of positives left over. So I know the answer is positive, and I must find the difference by subtracting. 53 minus 38. Well, again, 8 from 3 would give us a negative, so I don't want to do that. Let's make 5 4, and then this becomes 13. 13 minus 8 is 5. 4 minus 3 is 1. So we had 15 more positives than there were negatives. So my answer is positive 15. We don't need to show the positive symbol when expressing a positive number. It's assumed it will be positive unless we include a negative sign in our answer. All right, number 13, we have negative 36 minus 36. Now be careful here because a lot of people would look at this and think, well, won't it be 0? Will the answer be 0? Well, you're not subtracting the same number from itself. It's not negative 36 minus negative 36. So be sure to change it into an addition problem. So we write negative 36 plus, but then you also need to change this to its opposite, which would be negative 36. All right, you add the opposite of that second number. Now, notice both of them are negatives. So instead of canceling out and making zero pairs, they're going to join together and we're going to get a larger negative amount. So we'll take 36 plus 36 to see how many negatives we have altogether. 6 and 6 is 12, carry the 1. 3, 3, and 1 is 7. So we get 72 negatives. Don't forget the answer is negative. All right, so negative 72. Do we have time for one more? Let's see. Negative 18 times negative 5. Both of these are negatives. Remember, when multiplying and dividing, two negatives will give you a positive result. So my answer will be positive. And now you just multiply 18 times 5, which is 90. 5 times 8 is 40, carry the 4. 5 times 1 is 5, plus 4 is 9. And again, it is positive. So positive 90. That's it. I'll see you later.